In 1979, Dr. Zbigniew Brezinski was the national security advisor for President Jimmy Carter. One of his most important recommendations to President Carter was to support the CIA's plan to finance the Afghan Mujahideen in their civil war against the Afghan communist government, a full 6 months before the Soviets invaded Afghanistan to defend their anointed leaders. The Afghan communists had infuriated tribal leaders with edicts that allowed girls to go to school and women to work. Although life in major cities was quite modern, with women enjoying some basic rights, the communist government also alienated urban Afghans with their bureaucratic and repressive rule. An armed insurgency developed in the countryside amongst poorly armed tribal forces. In the book From the Shadows by former CIA Director Robert Gates, now President Obama's Secretary of Defense, Gates writes that the objective of funding the Mujahideen was summed up this way at a senior-level meeting on March 30th, 1979. Walt Slocum, representing defense, asked if there was a value in keeping the Afghan insurgency going, quote, sucking the Soviets into a Vietnamese quagmire. In a secret finding in July 1979, President Carter authorized the CIA to fund the resistance to the Afghan government. The strategy succeeded as the Soviets invaded on December 24th, 1979. In this second part of my interview with Dr. Zbigniew Brezinski, I asked what he thinks now of that fateful decision. When you go back in history, there's a famous interview you gave to a French paper where you talked about the decision to advise Jimmy Carter to arm the jihadists in Afghanistan against the communist government in Afghanistan. And you're quoted as saying that this would help induce or would lead to the Soviets intervening in Afghanistan, which might lead to their Vietnam. Is that a legitimate quote?
That's not an accurate quote. I don't know, what yours is based on. But there are two different aspects here that are kind of connected. One, Robert Gates revealed in his memoirs accurately that before the Soviets staged the formal invasion of Afghanistan, but they were already in Afghanistan with special forces and so forth, we increased financial assistance to the Mujahideen. It was mostly for the acquisition, presumably, of weapons. And then after they came in, when the Soviets came in, I did send the president a memo saying, yes, their entry into Afghanistan at a time of turmoil in Iran and in the whole Persian region, Gulf region as a consequence potentially, we have a chance to give the Soviets their Vietnam.
1998 interview with the French magazine Le Nouvel Observateur, you said that you knowingly increased the probability of a Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
The point, very simple, was this. We knew the Soviets were already conducting operations in Afghanistan. We knew there was opposition in Afghanistan to the progressive effort which was being made by the Soviets to take over. And we felt, therefore, it made a lot of sense to support those who were resisting. And we decided to do that. This, of course, probably convinced the Soviets even more to do what they were planning to do, which was to try to make a general takeover of the country by force of arms, and got them embroiled in an adventure which proved disastrous for them.
In the same interview, you were asked whether you regretted having supported Islamic fundamentalists and having armed future terrorists. Your reply was, what is more important in the history of the world, the Taliban or the collapse of the Soviet Empire and the end of the Cold War? Do you still stand by this statement?
It sounds like a very free translation of a comment regarding the importance of the Taliban. The Taliban itself wasn't very important. What was important was the fact that the Soviets pulverized Afghanistan, really destroyed it and polarized it, and subsequently produced the circumstances which are still confronting us in Afghanistan and that part of the world. But the fact that the Soviets became involved in an adventure which they could not win was positive from the standpoint of the West.